Week three has been and gone. It was great for some, it wasn't for most. Let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the URC Rewind. I am not Hugh. I'm back for 1 week while Hugh decides to go and walk up Snowdon. I say Hugh. Hugh's partner decided to go and walk up Snowdon, and Hugh didn't have a choice. He will be back next week. Two normal faces, Muhammed and Adam. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Good evening, all good.
Excellent, excellent. And down in the bottom corner there, joining us for this week and covering all things Scottish is Mark. Good evening, Mark.
Hello, gents. How are you?
I'm pleased to see you on board. So, you're a Glasgow supporter, and you actually know stuff about rugby and all of this kind of thing. So, give us a quick introduction as to who you are and why you love Glasgow so much, mate.
Straight away, my accent betrays me. I was born in Belfast, but I ended up living in Glasgow after I left the Navy. And I started following Glasgow, and that was my route to sort of start following Glasgow rugby. For my sins, I run a Facebook group called URC Rugby Banter, and I also run the Glasgow Warriors Supporters Forum, which just gained official recognition from the club last year. So I hope my blood is Irish, but my heart's in Glasgow.
See, that just says to me that you know stuff. Yeah, and I'm not sure that someone that knows stuff and has credibility is going to fit in on the.
Oh, I don't know. It's a funny game, rugby. I probably know as much as anybody else. And
Cool. Okay, well, let's crack on because there was a full card of games for week three, round three of the URC season. Kicked off on Friday night with Munster and Edinburgh. So, Adam, Munster were at home, 2019 win. Give us a quick rundown, mate.
I thought it was a very interesting game to watch. Edinburgh played particularly very well in the first half, sort of leading us on to think that they could actually be capable of actually winning the game. There was parts where I thought they were going to win the game. However, the discipline in Edinburgh just really lacked, and they had about four yellow cards. That means that I'd say what is it? Well, yeah, it's going to be like 40 minutes of the game they were playing with like a man less. So I'm surprised that it is by a point. But Munster also were a bit they were a bit they were interesting in parts. They were very uptight. There was no conversions kicked. For the second week in a row, we're talking about a game that hasn't had a conversion kicked for the team that wins. But conversions are a lot. Like they had zero conversions. Hanrahan missed a couple of conversions, and also Tony Butler towards the end. But I think this is Munster showing they can win scrappy games again. And at this point of the season, it's really crucial to be winning these games. I know it's by a point. I know Edinburgh's got a losing bonus point out of it as well. However, Munster have got a bonus point win out of that. They've only won by 20 points to 19, but still a bonus point. I think the lack of conversions really show a different story scoreboard wise. But it was quite an entertaining game in Cork. More entertaining for Munster towards the end as they sort of showed their class and they just sort of everything kicking in motion. But I think for Munster fans, I think they'd be pretty happy with that.
Mm. Did I read today that Munster have used 35 players already? Something like that.
Yep, yep, they have.
That's
They've got they've
phenomenal.
got they've got the depth. In the other podcasts that's a part of this family, the Interpro show that I do as well, we were talking about their depth, and their depth is vast. And I must shout out to a Dogbo coming on after 22 months. He's going to be a shining light in the Munster jersey, and also probably Ireland as well. I wouldn't put it past him. And another player that I mentioned week in week out, it seems to be from Munster, is Dan Kelly. He does show a good game when he comes off that he's either starting or comes off that bench. I think they've got a good one there. But yeah, as I said, I think Munster are going to be pretty happy, and also the fact that they've used, is it 35? Did you say?
I think it's all 35 now.
35 players, and it's only the third round, shows that they're using the depth and they're getting everyone blooded in and everyone comfortable essentially, because it's going to be a big season, judging by results that we've already seen.
Mm. So, Mark, you didn't know that you were coming on the podcast until a couple of hours ago. So, Friday night seems a lifetime ago. Did you manage to catch any of that Edinburgh performance?
I went back today and looked over some of the. I record all the games, and it sort of fills my week. So you've ruined the rest of my week having to watch everything in one day. I think that was despite the loss, I really feel that was the game that it kick-started Edinburgh's season. I don't know whether the occasion got to Healy or not, being, from the Irish stable, but, I thought he was off his game a little bit, and it got away from him. It was there for Edinburgh to take, but despite that 1 point loss, and it's, I'm one of those people, I don't like a team losing a game by 1 point. You almost like want to get beat really well, but it must be so frustrating winning by a point. But I think it is what Edinburgh needed going on the previous two games, and I think they'll feel now that's their season started despite a loss. And as you just said, they got a bonus point out of that, and I think they'll be really happy with that.
When we got to the end of last season, I think the last three teams, the reason they got into the top 8 was on losing bonus points. They were level on games won with the teams below.
Yeah,
and it was.
Already we're 3 games in, and the bonus points are showing the difference between like first and 8th is the bonus points.
Yeah. Muhammed, you were gonna come in. You were gonna.
Yeah, I've got some questions. I wasn't able to watch this game live. I was not able to watch a replay yet as well. The game obviously kicked off at the same time as the Stormers game, so that was my focus. I've only now, while we were having this discussion, looked at the team sheets, and I always find team sheets quite interesting post and pre-game. I wasn't aware that neither Crowley or Casey were playing in this game, and Munster still were able to win. So that's my one question for Adam and the whole panel. And my general sort of comment is that I think Munster look like really exciting and like the team to watch this season thus far. I mean, still early days, 15 more games to play in the sort of marathon that is a URC season. So, but they just look so refreshed, new coach, new attitude, less sort of injury worries and stuff, because they always had a reasonable amount of depth, but they seem to have so many injuries. So yeah, why no Crowley or Casey?
I think they just want to, like we say on the Interpro show, that Munster either base their wins off Casey or Crawley. I think this also shows how well they're playing without them. I think it's also a case of, I think with Casey and Crawley, they're going to have a really big week next week with the Leinster game in Croke Park, so they're going to have to rest players. I think we're going to see the likes of like Tag Burn back next week. We're going to see Casey and Crawley start. So the fact that they've got rested this week for a massive game at Croke Park, I think it's that edge that they need to have a chance of a massive game at Leinster. But I'm going to say the same about Leinster as well when we get on to them. But it's a huge game, and both teams want the most out of it. So I think they wanted Casey and Crawley to miss this week at the sacrifice of that. They did win, and they showed how well they are winning it even without them. But they need that extra step on if they want to get a point or win against Leinster next week.
Interesting.
Let's move on then to the other Friday night game, which was Scarlets and Stormers. So, for me, I got two ways of going on this. All I'm going to say for one part of it, and I could genuinely rant on this for like a good half hour, is the referee had a below par game on so many points. So Hugh is halfway up a mountain, and Hugh was sending me clips of he's missed this, he's missed this, he's missed, and I think there are about 15 different offences. That just when those are going against you, that kind of builds into the game. I think the disappointing thing from the Scarlets' point of view is we still had opportunities. We had the ball at 5 metre lineouts. I think we had 4 or 5 5 metre lineouts, and that's where we built our game last year, where we would take that like a corner, kick it to the corner, drive it over, no problems at all. And what that does is it pushes defences back. It means that any hint of, are you offside anywhere near the halfway line, bang, back in the corner, and you're going over for 5 points. So we've lost that kind of a threat, which the Stormers exploited. They were bloody offside all the time. And the referee, you can see by the amount of yellow cards, the referee just lost control of that game, which happens. And I don't think the TMO helped on it. Referee can only referee what they can see. The TMO just can't. I think he was having a cup of tea down the pub. He just was nowhere near that game. So, having said that, Stormers' defence was pretty awesome, and it was very, very committed. And we just didn't do. Considering where the Scarlets were at the end of last season, you could just throw a ball and there'd be 6 players there waiting to catch it. All of that's gone. It's like we've gone right back down to starting It's like we haven't even done a pre-season yet. So yeah, it was disappointing. There was stupid passes going. We were panicking. We missed the leadership of someone like Ken Owens. We haven't replaced a Ken Owens style person at captain, where Johnny Williams should have just been in his ear constantly going, "Can you look at this? Can you look at this? Can you look at this?" I know I'm going on about the ref, but there was one ruck where the ruck had gone down, the scrum half peels around the side of the ruck, gets tackled, and the referee called him for collapsing the ruck. And you're like, no, he'd run out from the back of the ruck, he ran round the side of the ruck, he then got tackled back into the ruck, and he pinned him for collapsing the ruck. And you're like, and how Johnny Williams didn't ask for a review of that or something. Just kind of, I think it got to us in the first 10 minutes, and we just we lost it. And that's where we just needed a bit of maturity at captain and a bit of maturity in it. But we Scarlets have got, I think it's 10 first team players out injured at the minute. 10 that you'd put on the team sheet first line, and 3 of them are in the second row. So, we had 2 at the end of the game. We finished the game with 2 flankers at second row. And when you're up against the Stormers, putting 2 flankers at second row is just asking for it. So, it was a hard night. I'm not that worried about where we go for the rest of the season, because I say once those players start coming back in, I think we'll be fine. When you've got Lousy and Jake Ball back in at second row, I think everything starts to click. You've got McLeod back in the back row. It'll start to start going forward. So yeah, it was a tough night. It wasn't a great night. I would have liked to seen us convert some of those kicks to the corner, but it is what it is, and I'll move on. So now I'm gonna let Muhammed have the same game, the exact same 80 minutes, to give you a completely different point of view. Go on, Muhammed. What's up, mate?
Did we watch the same game? I'm not sure.
Exactly.
But
See, that's what I'm talking about. Go on, mate.
So I'll start by saying, as a Shark supporter, Lee, producer Lee, I feel your pain. Things are not going great for us either. But as the South African correspondent, if we go back to the URC Rewind, as last week's one, as well as the Bit of an Animal episode that came out on Tuesday evening this week. By the way, we're taking a slight hiatus on that podcast, but doing great on that. Shout outs to my full panel, the Bomb Squad. If you look at the predictions I made on both those podcasts, I said Stormers by 3. And as I look through the Scarlets team, it looked like a solid team. The players that I knew, like in the first game of the URC, you looked at the Stormers team, and he wasn't that familiar with many of the players, whereas me, as sort of a rugby obsessive, even though I don't support the Stormers, I knew the players. So that having been said, I thought the Scarlets were solid. They were obviously getting pumped at at scrum quite a bit, but then at the 14th minute, we had the Stormers had a scrum in the Scarlets 22, and the Scarlets were very smart in terms of not giving the penalty away, only giving the short arm free kick, and you can't take another scrum from that. They had to tap and go, so that was kind of good from them. Yes, I to the degree that I look through the Scarlets team as it's in front of me now, I recognize a lot of players, but I was unaware that you guys were having a lock crisis. And yeah, my understanding is that a certain Hugh Griffin's going to be packing down for the Scarlets next week. I've not heard or seen him, but apparently it's a dead ringer for professional cyclist Geraint Thomas, who's also Welsh. So yeah, we're going to just see how that pans out next week. But yeah, I didn't think the Stormers would know the Scarlets like they did Leinster. So that's twice in the first 3 weeks. On the way home today, I thought about buying a donut and using it as a prop in the pod, but Hugh's not here today. He's always and Lee's a lot more chilled, so I'm glad that didn't actually pan out. Interesting is that Evan Roos lost his temper, but didn't really enjoy that, although he did have a solid game again. Shasha Feinberg and Gomezulu, not just this season, but the last 2 seasons before this, as he broke into the team. Dobson has spoken quite in length about trying to just work with him a bit in terms of not doing too much too soon. He tried some stuff that worked for the Springboks more recently, and then when he because if you do something in a rugby game, they're going to scout that. So he tried that whole thing where he runs at the line and then he kicks at the last minute. The Scarlets were well prepared for that, so good for them. And this is what happens in rugby: you need variation, and then sometimes even if you're as talented as Shasha Feinberg and Gomezulu, you need to maybe pull it back and play a more structured game because the opposition might have been preparing all week for a more expansive, fun game of yours. I would also like to point out that the Stormers front row, Sandy Sande and Alistair Vermaak, they did quite well. Alistair Vermaak, a veteran, unheralded player. Vernon Matongo as well on the bench, and then Zachary Porthwaite again. Zachary Porthen, I keep saying Porthwaite. Young former under-20 captain, got really eaten alive in the Currie Cup, scrumming against those Oaks from the Pumas, the Griquas and Boland, etc. But looking really solid at URC level, so it shows that that's a solid platform to learn your trade. Sad that Dion Fourie came on for 1 minute and then hurt himself and looks to be out for a long time. Imad Khan got his first URC appearance this season. He's the most experienced of 3 very highly thought of young scrum halves in the Stormers system. That's Imad Khan, it's Asad Moos, and then Stellenbosch University captain Ezekiel Ngobeni, who can also play wing. Yuri Mate had to come on late because the Stormers were also having a loose forward crisis. Paul de Villiers had a really good game. I know we always hype up Evan Roos, and Evan Roos is obviously very popular with my fellow panelist on the Bit of an Animal, Elisa B. She's the captain of the Evan Roos fan club. But Paul de Villiers, unheralded, had a really good game. Someone who might be a Springbok in the near future. So the other thing is that it's weird that they chose Damian Willemse to play fullback because he didn't get the ball a lot. I would have thought they might have played him at inside center and Rowan Nel at outside center and keep Wandisile Simelane at fullback. However, because Wandisile Simelane mostly likes to play outside center, and that's where he's played a lot. He did a few interviews on social media recently saying that he's still learning his trade at fullbacks because they were playing away in Wales against good opposition. They chose to rather just shift Wandisile Simelane, very talented player, to his more preferred position. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I just sad I couldn't get that pastry this afternoon.
Okay. Mark, you wanted to come in on that quickly?
Yeah, it was just that your point there about the ref. It's interesting to hear your comments on that because what I've always found is us in the North Hemisphere, I don't think we play the ref as well as our Southern Hemisphere counterparts do. You see that in the international games, but I really, really think Stormers do that amazingly well in our league. And it's something that we're learning. I mean, I feel that Glasgow were the victims of that a lot last year. Is when we came up against the South African side, they have the ref confused because there's so much happening at once, and we saw that. That's why the ref's missing things, because of for want of a better word, the dark arts that South Africa seem to be able to do. But they've read the rule book. They know the laws. They know how to play them, and I think that's something that we need to bring to our game in the Northern Hemisphere. And I did look. I think there was 4 yellow cards in that game as well, but 2 each side, so it evened it out. But the Stormers are very, very, very good at of doing that to a ref, and it's almost like you feel the refs need to up their game when they're refereeing South African sides, because they do know the law books inside out.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things as well where it's a relatively inexperienced ref and needed stronger touch judges, stronger TMO, and maybe that was kind of one of the touch judges. Genuinely looked like he was about 12, and I thought, I hope his mum knows he's out late, because she'll be worried. There'll be surge parties. She hasn't given him a scarf or a jacket. It was a cold night. She'll be concerned. Genuinely looked like he was about 12. Mo, we'll come back to you in a minute, mate. So we're going to move on to the next game, 3 o'clock on a Saturday, which was Benetton and the Lions. So obviously Mark hasn't had a chance to go into Benetton as well. So did anybody actually see this game?
Only highlights. Only highlights.
But I kind of watched it. I watched highlights, but I was watching maybe from a different angle than maybe anybody else was, because of what happened to us last week. So for those that remember,
what did happen to you last week, Mark? What did happen to Gus?
You just fell asleep. I mean, when that team was announced last week, when I seen our replacements to bench, I thought, this is easy. I almost felt sorry for Benetton, and I didn't give them the respect, and I don't think the team did either. I thought, with that bench, we're going to have this out of sight. But it was almost like the bench almost put us in the reverse. But to get beat by a drop goal when we should have been way out of sight, we give nothing in the second half. So I wanted to know, was that a glitch in Glasgow's matrix, or Benetton that good? And I think after watching that game, Benetton are that good. And the ironic thing is, who do we blame for that? If you go back a little bit, that's Franco's fault, our coach, because he had sort of set up the pathways for the youth of Italy coming through. So we blame him anyway. So, but fantastic. Benetton are the real deal now. It's been coming. They've had strong spells and seasons, and sort of finished off towards the end. They're my ones to watch this year. I enjoy watching them unless they're playing us, of course. But I think Benetton are the real bright star in Italian rugby. Gone are the days when you go to an Italian team and expect to get your 4 or 5 points. You'd be expecting bonus points galore. Not anymore. And you do have to battle.
Yeah. So, Muhammed, you watched the highlights on this one as well, and you've got a bit more understanding of the Lions. So, how good were Benetton, or how poor were the Lions?
Unfortunately, the Lions are poor, and poor Franco Smith, because no good deed goes unpunished. Now his hard work in Italy has come back to haunt him. But yeah, the Lions coach has been there for a while, Cash van Rooyen, or Ivan van Rooyen. Cash is his nickname, and he's finally got a good team. He's missing 1 or 2 forwards, maybe. Fasahi is a very experienced and guys who's played everywhere. If you look at Fasahi's the hooker, Fasahi's Wikipedia, he's played just about in every league. He's missing, but other than that, they've got the players. This management would say, hey, if everybody's fit, we'd be competitive. And pretty much everybody is fit. It doesn't help that Morne van der Berg, they obviously best scrum half, and who's got test experience and has been around the Springbok squad, if not playing. I mean, he just got back from I mean, he was in the squad playing against Argentina, even though he wasn't picked. So losing him almost immediately, that doesn't help. But still, we're setting reasonable standards for the Lions. We've given them a pass for years, but now with the type of team they have on paper, their management is under a lot of pressure. There's talk of like who can replace him, just like at the Sharks, for different reasons. But yeah, if you've got Cornon, if you've got Enko Venter, Enko van Wyk, that's like the third time I'd said Venter. If you've got Angela Davids, who recently came through from the Sharks, Chris Smith played fantastic for the Bulls 2 seasons ago. Recently came back from France. If you've got this type of depth, Asante Klabakane is there. You need to be able to execute. Yes, it's against a good Benetton team on paper, and in real life. The reality is that Benetton blow hot and cold. And that's why. But if I look through the Benetton squad, Reno Smith from Paul, he's there. Louis Liners playing on the wing. Menoncello, but still, I expected the Lions to at least get 2 losing bonus points, or at least put up a fight and not get mauled to death like this. Yeah, massively disappointed. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not a Lions supporter, but I am a Shark supporter, so that's only slightly better.
Props to Linus scoring 4 tries, though. That's absolutely incredible in any form of the game. I think it's really nice to see a good Treviso side, especially that back line with Menoncello and Fekitoa. If you would have told us like a couple of seasons ago that centre partnership was going to be a thing with how good Menoncello is, I think you may find that I think me and Hugh are quite big Menoncello fanboys in terms of that sense. I do like Menoncello, so it's really good to see. Makes us stronger for the league as well. Having
Yeah, that's the good bit in it, is the fact that they now competitive. Both Italian teams are competitive, despite the next score that I'm about to read out. And it just makes the whole league stronger, because there isn't a whipping boy, unless you're the Scarlets. In which case, we'll move on to Ospreys played 3 o'clock on Saturday as well. They hosted Zebre. Ospreys ran out 24-0, comfortable winners. Didn't get the 4 try bonus point. I don't think they got the 4 try bonus points. In all honesty, they should have put more on them. The amount of possession they had, the amount the level of dominance that they had over them. Zebre never really looked like scoring that much, There wasn't a bit where you thought, okay, the Ospreys are creaking here. It was, I don't know, it didn't feel fluid. It felt they had to work really, really hard to get those points, which I suppose is full credit to Zebre. Zebre were competitive. Zebre didn't roll over. They didn't make it easy for the Ospreys. There were a few changes in their side, and the Ospreys made them pay. And fair play to them. They did the job, and they did the job well. I think they may look back at the end of the season, and they look back at it and go, do you know what, there were a couple of points there that we should have had, and it may cost them. If they're 1 or 2 points away from the top 8, that's the game they'll look back on and go, there was a bonus point there waiting to happen. I'm sure they only had 3.
Yeah, there was something.
It's a shame that. Sorry, it's a shame that Zebre didn't get a point in that game, or score any points in that game, because I think the way Ospreys were playing, it was frustrating for Ospreys. They've been putting tries on the board and losing games, high scoring games. But then in this game yesterday, I must tell you, it did panic me, the game. I was sat waiting to go out, waiting on my wife while we were going to the Glasgow game. The pundits were at Scotstoun, so they were on the television. I'm going, they're at Scotstoun. Why is it on the TV now? And then they switched to the teams warming up, and I absolutely panicked because they were wearing the same kits as Zebre were in the same colours as Dragons were in, and Ospreys were wearing black at Glasgow. And I jumped up and said, "We're late at the gate. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff, not 5." But then I worked out what was going on. But watching that game, so we got the pub quite rapido just beside the ground, and I have to agree with you. It must be frustrating because they interrupted Ospreys. They stopped Ospreys scoring a lot more, but they didn't do anything. They didn't get the ball in hand. They were, they set up their defensive lines, but they weren't winning. They weren't winning possession. They were just interrupting Ospreys. It must be very frustrating for Zebre to come away with nothing.
And the flip side of that is Ospreys didn't let them play, and it's good to have at least one Welsh side that is properly competitive now. We'll see. The problem we have in Wales is depth of squad, and like you're saying with Munster, that can just flip. Literally, you can pick names from a hat on a Tuesday afternoon and go, "That's my side for the weekend," and they'll all just play. We don't have the luxury of that in Wales, and Ospreys, haven't got that many injured at the minute, and it shows what they can do when they've got that first 15 out. I think the first 15, or first 23, if you like, for all the Welsh sides is actually quite good. It's when you get below that and you start chipping into, if you get any of the key combinations wrong, you start to suffer. And the Ospreys aren't at the minute, so they're doing all right. Muhammed, you wanted to come in on that?
Yeah, just quickly from a general Welsh perspective, I forgot to mention that Joe Hawkins looked good for Scarlets, and it's good to have him back. He's a big oak, can play inside centre. I don't know how you feel about that in the broader sort of, is he going to be drafted back into the national team immediately? To have Joe Hawkins there, you can have Costello come off the teams. That seems to me from an outside perspective good. And obviously Ospreys had a really good game. I was able to watch parts of this. And obviously Dan Kasende again had a great game. So I'd like to ask Adam, where was Dan Kasende born?
Where's Dan Cassette? Oh, I know this. You told me this last week.
The pub quiz.
The pub quiz knowledge is gone. It got replaced
Adam's
this
not
week.
been doing his revision. He's been doing his homework. He's not done his revision.
I got it replaced by Leicester Tigers. I'm sorry, we're not supposed to mention the other league having a Swedish international come off the bench, and that's just completely thrown me.
Okay, we'll just give Adam a pass this time. It's the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was. Yes, okay, sorry.
All right, sorry about that, guys.
He must be due a call-up soon. Right, okay, let's move on then to Mark's big game of the weekend. So you were at this game then, Mark, Glasgow, 49-0 winners against Dragons. Your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I was at the game, and if you need proof, if you watch the first scrum, if you just look at the top of your screen, you can see me eating a kebab.
How long did you spend with the remote after going? Oh,
no,
there I am.
Two things. We've just got new floodlights at Scotstoun. I don't know if anybody noticed, but it looked like your TV was like mega HD. So we've got these floodlights. You can get a tan after it, and you need to wear glasses. So that usually I'm in the shadows. But also the URC have changed the score used to cover me in the top corner every time there's a scrum or a line out. I'm there, but I was covered. I was watching the TV and I was like, oh my god, got caught having a dirty kebab after being in the pub with Dragons fans. But what a weird game! What a strange game. 49-0. It didn't seem like it. We walked away, and it's almost like we just walked to the final whistle. I think it was 14-0 at half time. But even at the game, it didn't excite us. It didn't grip us. And I don't know what it was. It seemed to stay competitive, even though we were getting further away from Dragons. And Dragons' defensive lines were brilliant. And it should have been a lot more. And what I believe it was quite a second string Dragons team. But they dug in. And after the Benetton game, Glasgow really needed a response. And the frustrating thing as a Glasgow fan this year is we have a smaller playing pool. So we've got the sort of the monkey off our back for being the defending champions, because everybody raised their game. Every game was like the other team's final because, we're going to beat the reigning URC champions. We don't have that on our backs this year. So we were looking forward, to hopefully a more enjoyable season. Benetton put that to rest straight away. So we come up against the Dragons. We've got new players that we're brought in. Franco's setup is he doesn't call them academy players. They're just young players now. So we're relying on the academy. And some of these guys are going to end up having to get professional contracts by the end of the season, I would imagine, and that's going to present the SRU a problem. But as far as Franco's concerned, they're all part of the squad, and you can see that them sort of leading some of these young lads. So there may have been some unfamiliar names there, but George Horn just showed his class yet again. Kyle Stein getting across the line, he was fantastic. But we just couldn't work out why it wasn't a gripping, thrilling game. And I watched it back today, and I think it was just that, again, like I said about Zebre, Dragons they just didn't win any possession. They kept at it, but they didn't get any possession. And they pushed Glasgow back, but Glasgow when they got the ball, they did something with it. And certainly in the second half, and I think the turning point was when Dragons had a try disallowed for a forward pass. I think that just, they said, well, the gods are against us now. And they almost capitulated at that point. And the final sort of say in the game was a bizarre penalty try given, which was a shame one to end it. It was, it probably was going to be a try. Jamie Dobie would have been on that. But what a shame to finish a game like that. And the Dragons team, when they walked off, they looked absolutely dejected. But the fans were in good spirit. They kind of said it was coming, so they knew their team. And the lads I was talking to in the pub, Gareth, and they said it was coming. And I said, no, it's not going to be that bad. But it was. But as a Glasgow fan, I didn't feel that. It didn't feel like we just scalped the team 49-0. It felt competitive the whole way through. I think Glasgow have still got some gears to go through. I don't think we have seen the true Glasgow yet. And I know we're going to talk about next week's games, but we'll address that when that comes. But I still don't think we've seen the best of Glasgow. And that, I'm not saying that was a poor performance last night, but that wasn't a 49-0 performance from Glasgow. Yet that was the score. I hope that makes sense, because it sort of does in my head. But I'm saying that I woke up this morning thinking 49-0, and I went back to see where do we get it, and it's almost like we just walked across the line. It didn't feel like we competed. Although when you watch the defensive lines that Dragons set up, they were great. But how did we get 49 points off them? One big surprise, Adam Hastings, I thought was fantastic last night. He's Marmite for Glasgow fans. Love him or hate him, but I thought he had a very, very good game last night. And the sort of hidden gem we have got this year, and I would urge you to watch this player as the season goes on, is Dan Lancaster. He's been fantastic, and he was great when he came on last night. So he's one to watch. And Gregor Brown, he's amazing. He's on that. We had a quiz. We had a quiz a season ago, and he was on my team, and we won that as well. So I kind of feel like I'm invested in him just because he was on a quiz team with us. But I think he's a player for the future internationally as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the autumn internationals. So as a Glasgow fan, I still don't know. Although it's 49-0, no disrespect to Dragons at all, but it didn't feel like we had a convincing win, although the scoreline strongly suggests otherwise.
I think the Dragons made 12 changes in that squad that they sent down. A lot of young boys coming through. They've got the Ospreys this Friday, so they were saving a lot. I think they lost 2 players the week before and didn't want to lose another couple the week before a big game. Not that Glasgow isn't a big game, but they knew they could send a full strength side up there and might come away with a bonus point, a bonus losing point. So, I mean, the weird thing that I picked up the same, that it felt flat. And I think that's because Dragons competed with you so well at the start. To be 14-0 down by half time, I kind of thought, okay, that's only 2 tries. You're still in this. One lucky interception or whatever, and you're back in the game. One decent try, and you're level. So I think that kind of took some of the aggression out of the Glasgow atmosphere, like you say, wanting a response from the week before. I don't think Dragons will actually be that disappointed. I think there were enough elements in that game where you can look at and you go, okay, there's a couple of building blocks there, there's a couple of building blocks there, and they are very, very focused on, here's a couple of games that we need to win this season, and Ospreys next week is definitely one of them. So that's
it
where
makes
they're
sense
focused.
because it makes sense what you say about the changes actually, because it just seemed to be when you thought, as a Glasgow fan, we were getting worried. We think, oh no, here we go. They fluffed their lines, bad lineouts, etc. They got lineouts in good positions, but then they fluffed them. That's from what I saw. And where my seat is at Scotstoun, I'm in one of the corners in the North Stand, and so it can be quite frustrating where I'll see a lot of rugby one half and then see nothing the second half. But I seen a lot of rugby yesterday, which, forget all your stats, just from what I'm seeing in front of me, rather than staring at grass, I actually saw a lot of rugby, which means which suggests it was a more even game. But again, you look at that score and it tells a completely different story. Anybody that catches text must have thought, Glasgow walked that. I don't feel that we walked it. We earned it.
Definitely.
Fair play to Dragons for that.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the other 5:30 kickoff. Now, Adam, be nice. You've been warned before, okay? Otherwise, you'll be in detention. Leinster beat the Sharks 31-5. Be nice to Leinster because their fans are very, very sensitive and they've had a touchy start to the season. And I'm the one that winds them up in YouTube comments. So, off you go. What did you think of Leinster's win over the Sharks?
I thought it was very convincing. I think it's the game that they needed. To put it frank, I think Fintan Gunn had a really good game where he was playing some very good eyes up rugby. I think most of Leinster's tries came from very well worked plays. I'm thinking of like the Van der Fleer try where he just it was very soft defending from Sharks. I think it was a very disappointing. I'm sure we'll get onto it from Muhammed, but you can only play the team that's in front of you, and I think Leinster played it very well. I think they capitalized on things very well. Like the Gus McCarthy try was through an overthrow. That 9-10 partnership of Fintan Gunn and Harry Byrne worked out pretty well. Prendergast is getting rested for the big game against Munster in Croke Park next week. So I think there's a lot to pick from this Leinster team and their Lions. Some of their Lions are coming back. Lowe and Van der Fleer were most notably back as well as Tag Furlong. That's always a welcome sign. I'm sure any team in the URC would benefit from having one of those three players that I named coming back to them, and it's the game that they needed. I think it's the positivity, like that sort of boost that they needed. As I said last week, I don't think necessarily Leinster had a bad game. I think it's just South Africa is a very tough place to go. Whereas the first bit of the season, it's looking more and more like a little blip now, that nil-in against Stormers, whereas this one they were playing really good heads up rugby. They were playing the team that was in front of them, and they got the bonus point win out of it. And listen, like I think they needed this one to be a bit of a thrashing, to sort of that's their season now. I'd argue that their season started last week, and this is them solidifying that as they look on for top 8, which they're surely that they are going to get. It's whether or not they're going to get that like top 2 space, but it makes it interesting for the league. I think Leinster being strong again. They were never really weak, I must say, because the comments will pick apart. Mark, if you mention anything in this section, this is like the untouchable section that I get given every week, and there's normally a comment saying about how I've done something wrong, which I haven't, I don't think, in my opinion. I think, but yeah, I think it's a very good performance from Leinster. It's what they needed, especially before a big game in Croke Park against Munster next week. And yeah, I thought it was quite an entertaining watch in terms of how well, particularly Finn Gunn, he really impressed me this week.
So just to give some context to why Leinster fans have got a reputation for being so sensitive. I obviously I edited the podcast and I put it out. Okay, so we did a podcast last season where I put the podcast out. Let's say I put it out at 10 o'clock at night, and we didn't discuss Leinster in that podcast until about 10, it would have been half an hour in, 35 minutes, something like that. Within 3 minutes of me putting that podcast out, I had somebody in comments saying how we never gave Leinster a fair crack of the whip. And I'm like, how have you just watched 35 minutes of the podcast and commented inside 3 minutes? It's either that or it was Kalen in disguise going, right, I know what I'm going to do here. So
it's whatever to bump up views. It's whatever to bump up views. It's getting it out and pulling it back in.
So if Leinster fans are wondering why you get a rough ride every week, you've got to kind of take there's a bit of context.
My mom's from Dublin.
Top of the top.
Yeah, my mom's from Dublin. As we say, it's like one of those that Leinster are like the annoying cousins for me. So I have to show that. Like, I do respect what they do. It's just that sometimes I like to point out little things, but no, I did enjoy this game, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to an Inter-Pro next week.
You heard it here, everyone. Adam thinks Leinster is complete rubbish. Mo, what did you think of that game as an avid Sharks fan?
My long national nightmare continues. I can't believe the South African podcast here on the Global Ganglands called a bit of an animal, and Adam just said we got a bit of a thrashing. Is that subconscious? What the hell's going on? I wish I had Mark's problems. Mark is on here going like, oh yeah, we won 49-0, but yeah, oh my god. the Springboks are keeping me sane. Oh my god. On bit of an animal, I said it. I should have said it on the Global Ganglands a few days prior that the Sharks, prior to this game, the Sharks had to button up their uniform and pack a lunch because Leinster about to take them to school, and that's exactly what happened. I didn't have a lot of enthusiasm going into this tour because of the 9 Springboks missing and the fact that they weren't going to be available. Most of them, at least a few Springboks shuffled into this team, but they're on the wing, and they Ethan Hooker and Makazole Mampimpi looked good when they got the ball, but they barely did get the ball. Such a professional performance from Leinster. I figured this is what might happen. They didn't get a raft of Lions in, like Adam said previously in the URC Rewind last week. They only got like a few guys who were like traveling in the Lions, but not the ones playing the test games, really, the major games and that type of thing. But the players that they did get made an impact. Whereas with the Sharks, late in the game, we had Bongi Banambi come on, and yes, he made somewhat of an impact with the ball running and the scrum and that type of thing. But we got a hooker who hadn't been in the Shark setup for long. South African teams, we're starting to see the negatives also of how very chaotic, and as much as I often herald the fact that it's entertaining to have a 365 and a quarter season, Bongi Manabi was probably in the Sharks 8-week preseason for a week and a half. He was mostly with the Springboks, training with them. He also took a slight sabbatical for personal reasons. So he comes right back into the team, makes somewhat of an impact with the ball in hand. But Mervinari, very good player, but the problem is that he's the number 5 lock running the line out, and then he just joined the team, and we've got Bongi Manabi who wasn't there that much, and that's what happens when they call the line and he throws it right over Mervinari's head, and the Leinster player gets a easy run in. So all these things factor in, and I think the primary factor for me is, yes, we've lost Springboks, but I mentioned it multiple times on this podcast and Bit of an Animal. Like and subscribe. It's not so much the Springboks that we're missing. We can plan for that. It's the fact that we're missing like 18 other like second string-ish players that we expect when you build a squad to come into the team to then and play at a high level. In fact, I'd like to particularly mention the fact that we're missing 3 really good young locks in Emil van Heerden, Corne Raal, and Kutsia Leroux. So it's the same as the last, very similar to the last 3 weeks. I expect this type of performance. I would have liked a win last week, but we again played poorly. But when you actually see it happen in front of you, it's getting very annoying. And like the Lions coach, Plumtree is under under the gun now. We're gonna have to see some performances. But the last point I want to make is earlier today I looked at the structure of the South African season for the Sharks now, and at a minimum, the Sharks are going to fly from Durban to Europe 5 times this season, and maybe more depending on like if we have to play away in the EPCR tournaments and or because we already have 2 scheduled flyaways in the group stage in the EPCR tournaments, the Champions Cup. And if we have to play away in the URC and or in the EPCR tournaments later this season, that's going to deplete us as well. So not good, but yeah, I'm holding on by a thread.
Mo, I have to throw your comment back at you there. I bet all us three probably wish we had your problems. You know, your club team's not doing the best, but however, you're sitting on a World Cup and, you know, the Rugby Championship. So, you know, them's the breaks.
But that also speaks to the system. The system, we're going to have to find a bit of a balance now because we're seeing that maybe it shifts a little too much to making the Springboks really good, whereas the only franchise URC franchise team that's really performing now are the Stormers. So we're going to have to like tweak the balance a little.
Do you think winning something in Europe is where you're after? A South African team needs to win one of the European comps. Is that a goal you think?
I think for the teams is that Bulls have just got Ackerman and they've not won the URC, so they're going to try and do that. The Stormers have not won the URC in a while, so they're also going to try the URC as well. If the Sharks completely implode in the URC, they might just try the Champions Cup and Challenge Cup last time. Last season we dropped out of the Challenge Cup in the group stage and into the Challenge Cup, and my understanding from a sort of inside sources is that the ownership said, "Hey, we won the Challenge Cup last year. Just play the I don't like to call it second string team, but like the guys who hadn't played that much, still talented players in their own right, and then just try and do your best in the URC because the Bulls have made the final, the Stormers have made the final. We're the Sharks. We've invested so much into the team. Go for the URC this season. So it's still somewhat challenging, and I'm super stoked that we left Super Rugby and we moved to Europe, but it still also has its pros and cons. So we're trying to find the right system. So I don't think any South African team is full on going for the. I think maybe the Stormers will tell you that they're going for both.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to the 1/4 to 8 games then. We'll skip over the Ulster game to talk about it. So Adam wants to tell us exactly how good the Ulster pack is in their 28-7 win over the Bulls. Off you go, my friend.
So I think this is probably, I'm going to go out on a whim saying this is Richie Murphy's best win of his coaching tenure so far. I think everything worked exactly the way we wanted it to. As an Ulster fan, we haven't really been not as confident in how big our pack is. And the Bulls normally have probably one of the best packs in the league, bar probably like the likes of Leinster. But I have to say, everything sort of worked and clicked in our direction. I think we've not seen this type of fight in Ulster last season. We're seeing it now this season because there's a bit of hope in us. This is a team that we didn't play last week either, so I thought there would have been a bit of rust there, but we kept it cagey in the first half. It was 7-7 by the first half. We had a yellow card, which Bulls capitalized on straight away, but after that we kept them quiet. Our back row played brilliantly. I must say, Augustus is showed his class in that game as well. Certainly having a back row of Dave McCann, Nick Timoney and Augustus, it really showed its worth. Cormac Izuchuku was also a workhorse in that game as well. I just think it's really nice seeing this Ulster team click again. There was a lot of smiles. There was a lot of smiles and a lot of like having fun with the ball. I think our backs were electric as well. There's a lot of kicking in the back line, kicking into Jacob Stockdale at fullback, and Jacob Stockdale looking really, really comfortable, to be perfectly honest with you. Running it through defenders, passing it out when he can. There was an occasion where he nearly scored, but somebody caught up to him. But I have to say though, the thing that surprised me was, as well, is that the Bulls imploded in that second half. there was the lineout wasn't functioning, the scrum wasn't functioning. There was a lot of things that just wasn't working it wasn't working for them as well. Willie was it Willie LaRue came on. Willie LaRue came on, and I'm not sure if he's like that bench impact player that the Bulls need. I think he's one of those players now that he has to start. It's sort of like he's not going to give the impact. Yes, I know that he came on. He came on earlier than expected due to an injury, and also you had Andre Pollard who didn't really look like he was there in the game. It's sort of every time it sort of cut to him, I was just like, oh yeah, it's $100 playing the game. It's pretty cool that he's playing in Belfast. But we did really well to shut them down. I think Nathan Doak's running of the game as well was really good. I think this season is he's starting to really come into his own. And I think that aspect of Cooney not being over him is really benefiting his game. And I think the maturity in his game as well is really helping the likes of Jack Murphy build that bond between 9 and 10. But yeah, I think it was really beneficial to Ulster, and it was really fun watching Ulster, which I have to say, coming from last season, there wasn't many times that I could say that. So I really enjoyed this game.
How did you feel at half time at 7-all?
It was really cagey. Like I was a bit frightened. It was one of those that, typical Ulster. We would have went down like a penalty, or we would have went down a try in the second half and would have been shaken. But I think we showed really good fight from the get-go in the second half. And I think once they had a yellow card as well, we really opened up. I think their yellow card was, it was in the 47th minute, and we scored 3 tries. We really capitalized on that. And we also capitalized in defense as well. Our defense was outstanding. Willie Falloon's done an incredible job so far, and Mark Sexton's done an incredible job at making us look like we're playing really nice rugby. I think it's really nice to see us like going for offloads, missing out on rucks. You're having big fellas like Cormac Izuchukwu break through tackles with one hand free, just going like that. It's really entertaining, and also it woke up the crowd. I think we had a really quiet Ravenhill last season. This was the game that really woke up the crowd, and that's what we need. It's sort of that hope again.
I think Stockdale joined. I mean, I've got a soft spot for Jason Stockdale. I thought he enjoyed his rugby last night.
Yeah.
And that's going to be good for him. So I'll be keeping an eye on him over the next few games.
Yeah, and as we say, like I forgot to mention in the other Ireland games, is that the fullback positions open at the minute. Hugo Keenan's injured. You've got Jamie Osborne, who had a pretty good game. Mike Haley, who's been having a good games. Jacob Stockdale, who played 15 and had a pretty decent game as well. You also have Mike Laurie. You've got Jimmy O'Brien as well. You've got all these fullbacks playing really good rugby at the minute. So the game is open, and they're all playing for it essentially.
Yeah, I don't know why I just call him Jason. It's Jacob, of course it is. No, but it's good. I think also it's just a shame that last week I'm just wondering when that game's going to get played. But I think what was it 42-21 against the Dragons in the opening. But that I would have been right with yourself about missing a game out when the rest of us are getting to play. But they've come back, and that's a decent scalp taking the Bulls. Certainly is.
I've got a question for you, Adam. Right? When Mike Lowry scores, do they play Bad Boys as his song? And when you pronounce his name, do you go Mike Lowry? Mike Lowry. Because I would not be able to resist. I've got to be honest with you, mate. Hi.
Oh no, it's every time. I think somebody on Twitter always used to post that when he scored, but he wasn't playing this week. So, and he's been having a great season. I think it's just one of those where if he plays for Ireland, you can just imagine on that international stage how much that will get used. And fair play to him.
Right, let's quickly move on because we're running out of time. We're just going to assume that the Bulls are crap on that one. If any Bulls supporters are listening, by all means, comment underneath. You crack on, boys. I got no problems with that. So the Cardiff game, then the last game of the weekend, Cardiff won 14-8. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about this for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to pause and wait for 20 minutes, and then we'll talk about the second half. Did anybody else see that? Did any?
Yeah, I was half screening it, and at one point, the Ulster game was on 57 minutes, and I looked at the Cardiff Connacht game, and it was on 43 because of a TMO issue, and
Yeah,
also
bizarre.
was it a broken leg as well? It was probably one of the worst leg injuries I've ever seen, and I don't know why they decided to replay it. They
Yeah.
replayed it, and I'm like, you shouldn't replay rugby type injuries like that because it
Well,
was
they were.
horrific, and I hope the player's okay.
Yeah, no, he's out in Nas's.
Yeah,
Where he was definitely in line for a World Call up, but
yeah.
it was bizarre. So that injury, he came down off the line out and then kind of like limped off,
His
like he
leg,
twisted his ankle. Yeah,
yeah, his
but
leg went like that. It was horrific.
normally if somebody either dislocates or breaks their leg, they're in agony, and it's like, right, everybody stop, everybody go away, and all of that kind of stuff, and the players screaming on the floor. And he kind of like hopped off to the side and went, I need some attention. I've done the ankle. And then he was sitting there and he was kind of like
Yeah,
talking to people while the physio, and you're like, I I'm sure I saw his ankle pointing in a
yeah,
different direction. That guy must be in agony. And then as the physios came to him, he kind of like, you could see he went, oh, and then the face mask
yeah.
went on, and you went, all right, okay, he's in proper agony. So yeah, I think that's what it was. It didn't look like he'd done anything bad. I think when they showed the replay, they kind of went, holy cow, how is he
Yeah.
not screaming in agony on that?
It's wild.
Um, yeah, and the whole thing with the CMO was just a farce, a
It was
complete joke. It is, I don't know
uh,
whose fault it was, but someone needs a
it
kicking for it.
when you look at a game, and I was sort of like trying to keep as half and half as possible. To be honest with you, it was 75-25, but every time I looked at it, they seemed to be having more passing drills. I was just like, oh, I was like, at least Connacht and Cardiff's hands are going to be really well. But then when the game progressed, I don't know, it was because it was as stagnated as it was. The hands weren't great, and it just kept on. It was like immovable force versus unstoppable object, and something had to give. And I think the last sort of try for Connacht really solidified it, because I thought, no, the last try for Cardiff, sorry, really solidified it, because I did at one point thought that Connacht they knocked at the door, they kept on knocking, and then I think it was an intercept try. Really, it just really it took the wind out of the sails of the game, and I thought it was going to be one of the games of one of the games of the weekend. And on paper, I think it should have been. I think it was dealt with really unlucky consequences, like the injury, and also the like for a professional game of rugby, you would expect everything to work so smoothly, but the amount of times that I saw the referee just looking up like that, and there was like no replay, no anything, and it was
Yeah,
just a picture of him just like that going,
you kind
you
of
can't.
feel for him.
Yeah, you
It's
do.
Yeah, there was a game a couple of years ago where Nigel Owen refed. It was down at Parker Scarlets, and he lost his all of his comms.
He
Um,
was that the
and
phone call.
he had the phone.
Yeah,
He was
I
talking
think
on
that
the
might have been
phone
against
to the
Ulster.
CMO. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're like, that makes sense. Let's just do
yeah.
that. Let's kick off. Any problems? Give him a ring. Put your phone in your pocket. Give him
But
a ring. It's bizarre, bizarre.
it's the first season where all the TMOs are now based out of, is it London, isn't it? It's now the
Mm.
Hawkeye system, so it's all separate. Are we starting to see an issue with that? Do we? I personally am one to believe that TMOs should be in a stadium. I'm not so sure if that
Yeah.
happens now with the new outsourcing of TMOs. However, we see how awkward it runs with VAR in football. And I think the beauty of TMOs is that they see everything that we do, but they're also in the same vicinity. So
Yeah,
things like that happening when Nigel Owens had to get a phone call, it happens, but it worked. Do you know
yeah,
what I
it worked.
mean?
Yeah,
It should not be delaying games where in this day and age where we have so much like access to technologies and stuff like that as well. So I think it shows a little bit of a weird one on the URC for this TMO experiment, but we shall see in the long run.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, getting back to the game, Cardiff were 7-3 up at half time. It's a intercepted try with 10 minutes to go, kind of did finish it. Connacht did come back after that. It was a really
Yeah,
competitive game, really, really
yeah,
competitive. Both sides kind of cancelled each other out. Um, I think both sides really wanted to play.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted to throw the ball around, but both defenses were excellent. And I think that kind of reflects the score where, say, 14-8, and it was decided on an interception. It wasn't even an interception. It was a pass that went slightly behind. The player bobbled it, and then as he was kind of bobbling it, Cardiff player went 40 metres with it. So, I think Cardiff will be quite happy. Cardiff haven't got a head coach, haven't got an attack coach, and they're still winning games. Which for me is, that's a real positive for Cardiff, and they're still owned by the WRU and getting grief left, right, and centre. So they can't. There isn't a winning situation if you're a Cardiff supporter at the minute. So to actually win on the pitch is quite good. And before we get on to previewing games for next week, I've realised that I've made a mistake when I said Dragons are playing Ospreys. They're not. Dragons are playing Cardiff. Yeah, that's so. But again, comments below. Crack on, boys. You're fine. Yeah. So, that Cardiff game for me, I think Cardiff kind of needed that. They needed a bit of competition. They needed to either not have it all their own way. You're either getting a kick in or you're the one giving a kick in. To have a competitive game the week before you play the Dragons, it probably sets them up quite nice for it on that.
And fair play to Cardiff, because Connacht as well, you have to think what Lancaster was thinking as well. He's sort of been putting all these things into play. I think Connacht are still going to be quite strong. I think this is a minor, not a minor hiccup on their part. Cardiff played very well, but as you said, they were cancelling each other out, and it was a game of margins. It's fair enough from Cardiff in the situation that they're in, and in general, the WRU is in as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all of our games reviewed. So we are running short on time, Jen. So we're going to do the previews really, really quickly, and we're gonna rattle through them. But before we do, if you are liking what you are seeing and what you are hearing, please do subscribe to the Global Game Line below on the button. See, this is what the kids do. They go, "Hey, like and subscribe below. Hit the button below. Smash the button below," and all of that. Yeah, that's a
When
little
you say kids, you mean Adam.
Yeah. Gently press the subscribe button, otherwise you'll break the mouse or you'll break the screen or whatever. Gently press it, give it a little touch, and subscribe. Makes a massive difference on that.
And hit like as well. Hit like makes it really good.
Don't hit. Yeah, don't hit. Because people my age
lightly click.
Lightly, a gentle touch upon the screen will suffice, if you will. So, right, let's crack on with games for this week. So Friday night fixture. First one on the list is Edinburgh versus Benetton. So Mark, expectations and a score prediction?
17-10 to Benetton. I think Benetton are on a high. They're going to come with a lot of confidence. Edinburgh, I don't think they've gelled yet. I don't think they know their full. They don't have an immediate starting 15. I don't think the team's picking itself, if you know what I mean. But I think Benetton are going to come here, and they're going to bring it. They're going to bring it to Edinburgh. So, what I say, 17-10.
17-10. Okay. Adam, Connacht versus the Bulls.
I think this is going to be a very interesting game. I think it's going to be a Connacht win. If the Bulls were to play anything like they were against us in Belfast in that Galway wind, I think it's going to be another tough game for Bulls, to be perfectly honest with you. I think if I was a Connacht player, I'd be looking at this game as one of the ones that you have to win. I think the URC at the minute, the importance is in winning your home games, no matter who is it against. So I'm going to say Connacht by 10.
By 10. Cool. Okay. So also there are 3 Friday night games. So the other Friday night game is Dragons versus Cardiff, which is weird to have a derby game on a Friday night. I don't remember certainly the last 3 or 4 seasons having a derby game on a Friday night. So Dragons versus Cardiff, not Ospreys, as I said earlier. Dragons have Cardiff tend to beat the Dragons and they tend to get really, really angry. But I think this is a very different Dragon side to what we've seen previously. I think they're going to nick it. I do. I think that this is going to be another close, tense game, and it'll be a penalty or a penalty try in the last 5 minutes. And I think Dragons are just going to nick it by, you know, 2 or 3 points at most. But it's what I'm really hoping to see is a massive punch up on 5 minutes at the first scrum, and everyone just goes and they go, "Hey, the old school are back." So that's what I'm really hoping for. That's a joke, by the way, for people, all you young kids that are all delicate, and you're not allowed to do that. So that's an old school one. Okay, Saturday then. Scarlets start their tour of South Africa in where they go. It's Johannesburg, the Lions, aren't it? Isn't it, Muhammed?
Yeah. So
Yeah, it was, yeah.
hopefully hopefully a Lions win. Lions by 3, hopefully, but yeah, they better win this one. They're not getting any players back. They pretty much got their full squad, so it's everybody flying back over from overseas. Scarlets are a good team, though. Travel well in South Africa, so it's going to be tight, a bit of a coin toss. But patriotism makes me think Lions by 3. Otherwise, Cash van Rooyen's going to be looking for a new job.
Okay. Second game then in South Africa, Sharks versus Ulster. Now, Adam's going to get touchy on this one. So, all yours, Muhammed. Sharks versus Ulster.
It's tough to say looking at the team sheets and stuff, but if the Sharks team that played this week plays against the Ulster team that played this week, then the Ulster is going to win. I think we need to take a moment to actually acknowledge the fact that when we did the preview show on our logs and stuff, we all had Ulster as the 4th most competitive Irish team because there wasn't like massive shifts there. There wasn't like what's happening at Connacht with Lancaster coming in. Munster with a new coach, and obviously Leinster always really good. So yeah, I hope we win. But if Balakoon and those guys are there and Trukisa Gastas can play, it's going to be a tough one. But hopefully Sharks by 3.
By 3, okay. I'm going to break with tradition and just give Adam a chance to go back on that. Then a quick score prediction from you, Adam.
I want it to be a competitive game. I'm going to say Ulster by 3. James Hume gave an interview and he said we're there to play and we believe in ourselves. And I was like, it's the belief that Ulster hadn't perceived to have in many years. So I'm hoping Ulster by 3, but I'm hoping for a really good game.
Yeah, I hope Cormac Isachuku bangs his knee getting onto the plane.
Oh no, he'd be fine.
We should start a collection of stupid statements that coaches make. We're there to play. Really? I mean,
to be fair, it was James Hume, our centre. He was just sort of like, he said like Ulster sort of lost touch with themselves last year, and he was like, now Mark Sexton, we've got Johnny's brother as a attack coach. We've got Johnny Sexton's brother as an attack coach, so I've already got a favorite Sexton now, because he's an Ulster man. He's an Ulster man. But if we get a win out of the South African tour, I think we should build him a statue. So.
There was a coach that was asked there. This is more of a stupid question than a stupid statement. But somebody was asked on, I think it was a Scrum 5 thing. So who do you think's going to win this weekend? What's going to be the key bit? Who's going to win? And he went, well, whoever scores the most points. I think they'll come out on top. Okay, fair enough.
Right.
Big game in Ireland on Saturday, 5:15. Leinster v Munster. Thoughts on this one, Adam?
It's going to be a blockbuster game. Full strength teams I expect from both. Leinster will have their Lions back. Munster will have like the likes of Tag Byrne, Crawley, and Casey back. Croke Park, Dublin. We've seen so many like heroic moments from both sides there. I do see Leinster winning this. I see them winning it by 10. I think it's going to be a very close game, but it's going to be decided by margins like penalties and things like that as well. So I'd say Leinster by 10.
Leinster by 10. Okay. Next game on the board then, Zebre versus Stormers. So Mark, I mean, is Zebre gonna Are they going to?
I think it'll be one of those games where Zebre will put up a very good fight in the first half, and then Stormers will just run over them. Zebre will run out of steam. I see how Stormers take to the Zebre pitch and power mech, and you could take the strength out of the legs quite quickly. But I think Stormers are too good for Zebre. But it'll be the typical Zebre. Will be brave. They'll put up a good fight in the first half. But I'd say Stormers by 3 clear tries, 15 or 21.
And final game of the weekend, then Ospreys v Glasgow. So, Mark, I'm gonna give you first crack on this one, mate. Your thoughts.
Yeah,
and this is at the Brewery Field, though. So that's a definite factor. Yeah.
All right. So, there's 2 games this weekend which I think are going to tell where teams are, where the URC are. One of them is Leinster Munster. This is the second one. There's 2 teams there, and we think we know where they're at. But, Ospreys have scored a lot of tries, but not got a lot of wins. Glasgow, we don't know where they are. A win, a loss, and a 49-0 treacle march. That's what it felt like. So this is going to really show where both teams are. But I fancy Glasgow, and I'm going to say 23-12 to Glasgow. I think it will be attritional. It'll be an arm wrestle in the first half, and it'll be attritional rugby. As a Glasgow fan, the best thing I could hope is come away with a win, but I'm worried about how physical that game will be down there. And I just hope we get away with a team fully intact.
I think the Ospreys' best hope here is to beat you up front. Really go for it, hammer and tongs up front, and take the wind out your sails early. Whether they're capable of doing that, I mean, they're capable of doing it. Definitely capable of doing it. Whether or not they put that together on Friday, on Saturday, I don't know. I'm gonna go for. I'm gonna say it's a tight game. I'm gonna go Glasgow by 5, but I would not be surprised if the weather turns, if the Ospreys get ahead early. I would not be surprised to see that turn the other way. But I think Glasgow will be good enough for them on Saturday, and will come out by 5 points on that one. Okay, that brings us to the end of this. It's been nice to be back, boys. It's the last time I did a pod with you guys was 12 months ago. Easy. Is like when we
towards the end of last season, you did do one URC rewind. Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh my
It's
God,
on that app.
I think you must have, because I think I was on that.
I think it was one year where you joined, where Caleb was going and you were joining. Yeah. God, I blanked that out my memory, boys. That's how bad it was.
You've done way more podcasts than us, so it's difficult to keep track.
I would argue that I'm a seasoned veteran now, but I don't know. I'm doing 2 podcasts a week, so I'm getting there. I don't know.
I've got no context. I think it's brilliant. So whatever's happened before.
The one bit that kind of tickled me a couple of weeks ago, I sat in for Kalen on the Interpro show.
That was such a fun show.
The most random, stupid guesses at scores and all of this kind of stuff. And one of the comments on YouTube was, thirdly, as a presenter. So I highlighted that, sent it to Kalen straight away on that.
As a teacher, it was like one of those moments when the supply's in. It felt like that, but in podcast form. I think the other lads are, including me, were a bit giddy, going, "Oh, we can get away with saying a couple of things here."
Well, on that note, Hugh will be back next week in the hot seat and doing all the exciting stuff. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this evening. It has been a pleasure. I shall see you all again. Enjoy your rugby. All the best.